I guess this leads me into the question about the ideal form of governance. This conversation is convincing me that democracy cannot work. When I look at democracies across the world, you can take the UK, India, maybe Canada, Australia, definitely America. It feels like democracies pushing them backwards. They're taking regressive steps. All these problems that we just spoke about today, money in politics, mass manipulation by the media, I can't English today, and gerrymandering of districts, all of these exist in all of these democracies as well. In the UK in particular, they were convinced that the European Union is a bad thing. In India, religious intolerance is now on the rise. In America, they're denying climate change because fossil fuel companies have bought politicians. They're opposing paid family leave, free healthcare. They're curbing all protests against the genocide in Gaza. They're curbing immigration, speaking out against abortion, free speech. They're opposing gun control despite frequent school shootings. Literally, kids are dying. All of these feel like regressive steps that are being caused by democracy. Do you think democracy can work, or is it time to start looking for a variant of it or a newer form of governance?
No, I'm positive democracy is the right form of government. Okay. So the problems that we're facing here is not because of just democracy. It's because democracy got taken over by money and corporations, right? And so if you let corporations take over your government and then you complain about the government, you're playing into their hands, right? They don't want democracy. They want to be able to own all the politicians and get them to do whatever they want. And so if you then get frustrated with democracy, you're accidentally helping them. So how do you do it right? Again, we come back to the concept of democratic capitalism. So you use democracy to put checks on capitalism. So you're not allowed to have monopoly power because then you will abuse it, and you're not allowed to give money to politicians. Otherwise, the politicians will work for you. That's the first rule. That's obvious. So unfortunately, the Supreme Court here, did the opposite. So we have to pass an amendment. We don't have a choice. If America does not pass an amendment to get money out of politics, it'll go like this forever until the country's totally ruined and takes half the world down with it, okay? Because corporate rule is infinite greed, and infinite greed never does anything but destroy everything in its path, okay? So we have to change the rules. That's super important. But that doesn't mean you change the rules against democracy. So, of course, there's always the issue of what's the alternative. And any kind of autocratic rule ruled by one person or a small group of people is a disaster 100% of the time. So it never works. It has no chance of working. And so it has to be democracy. But look, Canada's done it right. Northern Europe's done it right. And then, it's funny you have the invisible hand here, right? Because I write a lot about that in my book, right? Yeah. And so the invisible hand of the market realized if you capture the government, that'll give you bigger profits, right? And all of that has driven because of that, right? So, but if you're cognizant of the fact that the invisible hand of the market exists, and you know that if you set up a democracy, moneyed interests, powerful people are going to want to purchase the politicians, then you set a rule saying they cannot do that. And you have to be almost religious about that rule, because the minute you let it slip, tsunami of money will come in and buy all the politicians, right? You cannot let money get into politics. So if you set the rules right, you'll get the right results. If you set the rules wrong, you'll get the wrong results. There's definitely a way of setting it right. But one more thing that's really interesting. We are built for democracy. So why? Look, I'm an atheist, and so I believe in science. I believe in evolution, and whether you're an atheist or not, evolution is a fact. And so, and yes, I know this bothers some people. Sorry, but we're apes. We're literally apes. Okay, and our two closest cousins are chimpanzees and bonobos. And you say, oh, that's ridiculous. No, they literally have 99% of our DNA. Okay. They have eyes like us, ears like us, et cetera, right? And so then when you study chimpanzees and bonobos, you know how they pick their alpha males or their alpha females, because the bonobos are more matriarchy rather than a patriarchy. We're, by the way, right in between the bonobos and the chimpanzees. So one is female-dominated, the other is male-dominated. We're kind of in the middle. And the way they pick their leaders, even the chimpanzees that are male-dominated and much more violent, they pick it through democracy. Isn't that amazing? They also have 2-week vacations that couples go on in the away from the tribe in chimpanzees. Okay, so what chimpanzees do for their leader is they don't pick the guy who fights the best, which is how most animals pick their alphas. Yeah. So no, the alpha goes and picks lice off of other people, goes and brings them food and gives it to them, does favors, takes care of the young, etc. And then the community agrees that he is the leader. Okay. And then it's literally in our genetics. It's in our DNA. So if one person dominates everyone else, it makes everyone else uncomfortable. And we want what? We want freedom and we want fairness. Why do we want freedom and fairness? Because it's inside of us. If you try to block freedom or fairness, humans will always rebel because that's the kind of animal we are. We cannot stand being imprisoned, right? And having our sovereignty taken away, having control taken away from us. And we can't stand injustice because that's how our tribe, our communities bond. We have fair exchanges, right? So democracy is built into our genes. Any other system will not work.
This is where I struggle with democracy. I feel maybe this is getting to the philosophy of democracy. I just feel like it's fundamentally at odds with an optimal game theoretic strategy for human civilization. And in 1981, the Princeton philosopher Peter Singer had written a book, The Expanding Circle, in which he had argued for a system of ethics that starts by caring for yourself, but it should start expanding outwards. He called it moral expansion. Your circle of ethics starts by caring for yourself, then you start caring for your family, then for your tribe, then for your nation, and then beyond that for entire humanity, and then maybe animals as well. And I feel democracy puts this ceiling at the middle stage. It says everything you do should be done for national interests and national security. America is a good example of how national interests can be abused. That's the reason they cited for bombing Iraq to shreds. It's the reason they imposed sanctions on Iran and Cuba, why they destabilized governments in South America. You brought it up. This is what Richard Nixon told Henry Kissinger to make the Chilean economy scream to prevent the rise of Salvador Allende because he's a threat to our national security, right? It's the reason they give for all of these actions. And I feel that's as long as you follow democracy, you will set that ceiling for your system of ethics, but it has to expand beyond that to an international variant, maybe.
Totally disagree.
Okay.
So I quoted that same book in my book,
right?
And I talked about the expanding circle of liberty, and I said that being a progressive means that you believe in a bigger circle, right? And empathy is a defining trait of progressives and people on the left. Why I disagree. So first of all, again, we're conflating two different things. So why did Nixon do that? Why did the American government attack Iraq, et cetera? It had nothing to do with protecting national interests. That was the stated reason. But in reality, it was for economic reasons and corporate reasons. So for example, we called the Latin American countries that we attacked and deposed their leaders and assassinated, we call them banana republics. Why do we call them banana republics? Because one time we did that to a country because they wouldn't sell the Dole Fruit Company bananas at the right price. Okay, so Dole ordered the U.S. government to invade a country or to get rid of their leader for frickin' bananas.
Yeah.
Right? So that has nothing to do with national security. That has nothing to do with democracy. That is, again, corporate interests capturing the government and leading it in the wrong direction. So in terms of expanding this circle, democracy allows you to expand it to the biggest number of people within a country, right? Because if you have one king, it's only for one person. If you have lords, it's only for the lords, right? But if you have democracy, you expand the circle by definition. If you say, well, okay, I hear you, but then how about other countries? Well, first of all, one day, and my right-wing friends, I hope you're sitting, we could have a world government. I know they hate that idea because they want smaller circles, right? Yeah. But we could have a world government, and then you've expanded it to the point where we're considering everybody, right? But even if you don't have a world government, those governments interact, et cetera. And over time, the invisible hand is also going to lead us to the right answer. We're going to try a lot of different things, and a lot of things are going to go wrong. Right now, America's on a very wrong direction. Turkey's in the wrong direction, Russia, Israel, et cetera, very wrong directions. But there's countries that are in great directions. Look, South Korea has a bunch of issues, but economically, they're doing amazing. So if you look at all the things that work, the Norwegian prisons, the Finnish education system, systems that do so much better than the average or go to number one in the whole world? If we study them all, you will find the answers for what works. And then if you do that over time, what you do is, one, you get better and better, your governments, your democracies. And secondly, you start slowly expanding the circle. Hey, that's interesting. The people of Finland figured out how to do education better than the rest of the world. Okay, then let's learn from them. Oh, I learned from the Finnish. Well, then I like the Finnish. I have more empathy towards the Finnish, right? Oh, it turns out Muslims discovered algebra. Oh, it was al-jabra, right? Oh, okay, well, that makes me relate to them a little bit, okay? And maybe I shouldn't hate Muslims. And, you expand that by billions of interactions. In the beginning, what happened? We were little tribes, and anytime you ran into another tribe, you just immediately start killing each other, okay? You go to war, you go to conflict, etc. And I should know, I'm Turkish. We came from the Central Asian steppes, and us Mongols and Turks, we fought our way out of that, and it was nonstop wars, right? And that's probably why I have the nature that I do,
right?
Yeah. So, but we started getting less and less wars over the course of history. So right now, Gaza breaks our heart, and Ukraine breaks our heart, and so many other conflicts across the world, Syria, etc. Right? But it's a lot less war than it used to be. Not even a little. It's way less than it used to be. And why is that? Because we're doing a lot more trade now. So now when our economies are intertwined, as Donald Trump just learned the hard way when he tried those tariffs, when our economies are bound together, it makes it harder to go to war. And so, in the beginning, you have economic competition. Oh, the Chinese are bad. They're our enemies, etc. And then eventually they turn into Mexico and Canada. And then you realize they're not your enemies. And that trade created these bonds that then made you realize the Chinese are not evil. That's crazy talk. Because eventually our businessmen and their businessmen get together. Eventually they come here, we go there, and we begin to realize, oh, right, they're human just like us. And we expand the circle, and we expand the circle.
I guess I'm still struggling with how that might happen as long as you keep that ceiling, like that national layer, especially when we have all these concerns around, you brought up AI ethics, that's truly a global concern. Nuclear weapons another, climate change is another. And it feels like if every country is just looking out for themselves, which is how democracy is set up at the moment, it's an open question how it might happen, but I'm hopeful that your theory might work.